to the fifth session of Communicative English. I'm Dr. Archana Durgesh, and I'm from the Department of Humanities and Social Sciences, BBD University. We'll continue with our discussion on barriers to communication. You know, the beauty of anything or the significance of anything can be understood only when you get a barrier in between. Like, suppose if you are getting home cooked food every day, delicious food every day, and you just make excuses. I don't want to eat that. I don't want to eat that. But someday, when you go to the hospital or for job, you go to a certain city and you live there, maybe out of country sometimes. Then you realize the importance of home cooked food. And when you come back, you don't want delicacies. What you want is any normal course food, simple khana. In the same way, communication goes. When it goes on without any hitch, without any problem, it's considered good. But suppose if there is some kind of a problem or a barrier arises, that is where you realize the importance of communication. You realize how important it is to reach out to somebody, talk to somebody. Like if I want to talk to somebody and the phone is not getting connected due to network issues, or I'm sending the text, but the text is not going because the connectivity is not there, or my phone is not working properly. And if I want to meet somebody, but I don't have any way out to go, then I realize how important it is to communicate and how easily I was communicating right now. So today we are going to do barriers. What affects effective communication? What hinders your communication? So it is here I start sharing my notes, which can be used as primary or secondary source. You can add on, and if you wish, you can edit. But see to it that they have been designed according to the purpose of your study and keeping in mind the syllabus. Okay. Yesterday we did various modes of communication. And today, what we are going to do is barriers. Barriers can be easily defined as obstacle or barrier in a workplace communication that prevents effective exchange of ideas or thoughts. Such barriers include status difference, gender difference, cultural difference, prejudice, and organizational environment. For example, if I say that when you join the college for the very first time and you come along and you meet people, so somebody has come to college by Ferrari, somebody has come by BMW, somebody has come by Wagoner, somebody has come by bike, somebody has come by college bus. So it creates a lot of status difference. That is why students are given uniform. Uniform means keeping everybody equal. That is why the concept of uniform came in. Because status difference even creates a lot of trouble while communicating with people. You feel very comfortable when you are talking to somebody of your own status. But it really becomes a trouble when you are talking to somebody from a very rich and unknown background. A normal communication barrier can even arise when there is gender difference. Like gender difference, if you talk about, there are some things you have to keep in mind the propriety while communicating. Propriety in communication matters a lot. Why? Because there is a difference between talking to a male and a female. Like you cannot discuss anything, you cannot talk in any language, you cannot use slangs, you cannot swear in front of females because it is considered something like uncultured in general. Then there are cultural differences. We are all from different cultural backgrounds. Even religion plays a very important and vital role, but culture definitely makes a lot of difference. Like what I am talking about is on a wider perspective. Like in the last session, I don't remember, I was talking about body language. Yes, in the second or the first session, I was talking to you when I told you that a simple pointing finger touching the thumb means something in some culture and may mean an insult in certain culture. When in India, when somebody touches your feet or when comes closer, it is very common that we touch a person's head. But in certain cultures, touching on the head is an insult. It's considered impolite. So there are cultural differences, and until you understand the cultural differences, you won't be able to communicate. The organization, the prejudices. The prejudices or the preconceived notions. For example, if I ask you that, have you watched certain movie? And you tell me, oh ma'am, please don't watch it. It's a sheer waste of time and money. You'll regret watching it. Will I watch? No, I won't. Why? Because I have had a prejudice. I have a preconceived notion that the movie that I was planning to watch is a flop. Why should I spend my time and money on it? Why not watch another one which you have recommended? It may be that you were and I are of different taste. You didn't like that particular movie, it belonged to a different genre. I may have enjoyed it a lot. But the prejudice, the preconceived notion came in my mind, and now I don't want to watch it. These things happen in day to day business and communication. Like, suppose if I say that I don't get along with the liberals, and if I come to know that so and so is a liberal, then it definitely becomes very difficult for me to communicate. I have to come over this prejudice. In certain situations, you can say, if I tell you something negative about the person, that listen, you are going to that person, but that person is not very trustworthy, and that person is so unapproachable kinds, and he won't help you anyways. So he will definitely create one or the other trouble for you. Will you go to that person? Now that you have had a prejudice to me, that now I've catered my preconceived notions, I have shared my experience with you. Will you share your? Will you try and have an experience with that person? Definitely not, because I have somewhere psychologically affected you. Now, the organizational environment. The organizational environment even definitely matters because, there are certain people who are leaders. Now, there is a difference between an actual leader and just being a leader. Like, if you give, if you are a true leader, you'll always give a valuable input, and you will always create an amiable environment for the person to foster and grow. But if you are insecure yourself, if you are insecure of your juniors, or if you think that they are more capable than you, they are very dynamic, then definitely you will create a negative environment. And nobody can, grow as an individual in a negative environment. So we have to always give a positive environment, an amiable environment. Amiable means friendly environment, so that the person can share his or her feelings. If you are going to barricade yourself behind being unavailable or being very important, or a person of repute and unapproachability, then definitely a barrier will be created, and people won't be able to come to you and discuss their issues with you. So in that case, you don't emerge as a true leader, and the environment of the organization even suffers. Now, if we go according to the types of barriers, effective communication is necessary part of dealing with individuals under stress. Like, for example, linguistic barriers are basically related to language, the effectivity in the dialogue. Now, if somebody is under stress, then the person has to be calmed down. You cannot communicate when you are in stress or the person sitting in front of you is in stress. The sender and the receiver have to be in a very balanced state of mind. Otherwise, proper communication cannot take place. A rational decision cannot be made. If an individual is showing signs of anxiety, you should probably make them feel comfortable and counsel them so that good communication can take place. Communication is defined as an exchange of process whose purpose is to inform, persuade, and or entertain another. In order to make this definition complete, understanding must be included. You must understand what is being said, how it is being said, and why it is being said, and when it is being said. No matter the circumstances that surround the communication process, the reader, the receiver, and the sender must have an understanding of what has been stated, written, or implied. Because language is, a tool. and you can use it in any way. But the correct usage matters a lot. You have to understand the importance of communication. Because when it comes to the case of communication, then it's not just a collection of words, spoken or written, the sounds or the gestures. It is more than that. You have to be very refined. You have to be very uh, ob- uh, conscious of what you are doing and what you are saying and what you are meaning and what's the person in front of you, the receiver in front of you is understanding. Why is communication so important? Explicit communication is a cultural function. In all the cases of society, we expect what we say is understood, and what we hear is what the sender said and meant. Now, there is a very common saying in Hindi, "अर्थ लेने के होते हैं, देने के नहीं होते." You have to understand the meaning. The sender has said something. For example, if I say that why aren't you studying properly? Suppose you're sitting in the class and I've given you a written assignment because unless and until you write, I won't be able to understand whether you have understood the concept or not. Because understanding is different and producing it on a sheet of paper is entirely. If I'm asking you to write it on a sheet of paper, you must go through ideation and putting it on a sheet of paper. Because clear thinking is nothing but a representation in a very clear way on a sheet of paper. So if I've asked you to write something, then you must, and if you're not writing and you're talking among yourself, between your it's a conversation that you are engaging with your friends in, then you might get scolding from. I might ask you, I might recommend you and say that why are you talking? Why aren't you writing? But you must understand, I am having good feelings at heart for you. I want your betterment. That is why I'm telling you this. You must not take it otherwise and say, who are you? Why are you so concerned? You come teach and go. It's not that. My duty is not only to teach you, but to make sure that you understand intelligently and you are ready for your examination. Because you have to take an examination. And you must understand it for life because communication is not just a subject. It is the blood and soul of everything that you do in day-to-day life. Communication is very important and significant. It holds a pivotal position in our life. You have to come out of the capsule of assuming things. There is nothing like assumption in communication. And language sometimes leaves us nothing but to assume. So the exact understanding of the communication between the sender and the receiver is hindered. A partial or total lack of understanding in a communication can give rise to numerous and serious problems. Misunderstandings can even arise. It can result in loss of finance, emotional distress, or unnecessary delays. These problems can and do occur when we do not make a conscious effort to communicate explicitly. Now, this is something that you have to do. You have to make a conscious effort to be very clear, to communicate very openly and communicate very intelligently and by understanding in what position the receiver is. Because UNES in communication is very important. The U factor is very important. In communication, three messages are sent. What the sender thought, he communicated. That is what he meant. What the sender actually communicated. That is what he said. And what the receiver of the communication received, that is heard or perceived. Now, you will say that what is the difference between them? I'll tell you what is the difference. It is the role play of the language. Basically, what happens is when we say that, like, suppose I give you an example that why aren't you writing? I've given you a test, take a sheet of paper and start writing. What I meant was that every student should write. And what I said was that you should write. But what you perceived is that she's being rude. Why is she concerned whether I'm writing or not? Others are writing. But I'm concerned about you even. Because each and every child is my responsibility. Every student is important to me. I am not concerned of what one is doing. I'm concerned with what everybody is doing. Because communication is meant for all. I have to make sure that each and every one of you understands what I'm talking about. That is the sole purpose of my communication. Because what is the point when only one is understanding or a couple of people are understanding? My sole purpose, in fact, my aim, objective of my lecture is that every student should understand what communication is, what I meant, what I said, and you should understand same to same, that we should remain on the same page. This it's a term which says being on the same page. It means when you and me think of the same thing, that you what I meant you should understand in the same perspective and fashion. Okay, now we'll move ahead. When all the three of the messages are the same, that is when you have an effective communication. Yes, what I thought, what I said, and what you understood. If all the three are the same, then that is what effective communication is all about. If I said, if I thought that I should make you understand what is red color, and I tell you red as an apple, and you simply perceive an apple which is red in color. So if all the three are matching, then it's an effective communication. When any of the messages are different, that is where the barriers are directed. If barriers are directed by a helping person trying to intervene during a crisis, the resulting behavior of the client can be unpredictable. A misinterpreted statement, for example, can result in an individual accelerating into a more aggressive stage when it is all likelihood it may have been prevented or at least reduced. Now, sometimes when some people try to intervene in between and they try to explain, it is sometimes misinterpreted and can be understood as if they're interviewing. Now, virtually any behavior or mannerism can prove to be a barrier to effective communication. Like, for example, your physical, emotional, psychological, and linguistic feature. In dealing with people in crisis situation, an understanding of linguistic barrier is of paramount importance. Barriers are erected by one or both the participants. Like it can be created by the sender or the receiver or both. The placement may be intentional or unintentional, depending upon the capability of one of the communicators. Now, there are no set time frames for existence of barriers or when the removal of the same is possible. Some may be removed in a matter of seconds. Some may never be removed. Like if a barrier has come, there has been a misunderstanding, maybe it can be mitigated. Mitigating means removed in 1 or 2 minutes or a couple of seconds, or it may not. If I don't want to mitigate the differences, it may last for a lifetime. I don't want to mitigate my differences with you. I don't want to understand. I don't want to listen to your side of the story. Let it be. You may be right, I may be wrong, but I don't want to listen to you. I don't want to hear your perspective. That is where the barriers will remain for life. Key factors in dealing with the barriers are there should be a specific recognition, the acceptance that the barrier poses a problem, and there should be a resolution to overcome it. The process is really very important. Without barrier recognition, effective communication cannot exist. Like you cannot communicate unless and until you recognize them, you overcome them. Because there are numerous types of communications in which various barriers that come during our interaction, and you cannot, in fact, deal with them unless and until you really have an intention to do it. In dealing with people who are in crisis, one of the most commonly used forms of communication is linguistical or oral communication. Like in a country like America, it is divided by common language. Like English is the common language. While this statement may be humorous, it is true. Our society is based on communication, especially food. We spend a great deal of our time through talking. We talk, listen, read, and write. As I told you, that a person goes through the learning stage of a language through LSRW, listening, speaking, reading, and writing. And it's increasing day by day. The language itself is a barrier. Like everybody has their set of vocabulary. For example, if my vocabulary is 2000, Maybe your vocabulary is 1,500. Somebody's vocabulary may be 2,500. On the contrary, a child may have a vocabulary of only 200 words, but dictionaries have a total of around 15,000 words. In light of this, this statement, you can wonder that how linguistic barriers can. For example, if you are crying and I pat your back and say, "Child, you should be pragmatic enough." Now, if you understand the word pragmatic means, then you will be able to understand that pragmatic means practice. Like yesterday, I said that I like apricity. But if you understand apricity, then only you'll be able to understand. Unless and until I give you the meaning of it. Like somebody, my son asked me today, what do you mean by satisfied? Satisfied is a very small word. How can I explain what is satisfied? I said when you are uh, somewhat in Hindi, you say santusht, like you are happy with what you have, you are self-contained. How should I? Now, this is where I like this vocabulary because for me, satisfied is a very small word. Satiated, and there are other words that I have in my dictionary, in my vocabulary. Now, so explaining such a small word can even create a bad. We move ahead. Communication with those outside the profession who are involved, especially those who are trying to help us, the public safety, the medical terminology, psychological terms, it may like be very simple for those in the field to understand. But for someone else in a crisis situation, this type of communication may be perceived as threatening. Their inability to understand what is being said can even increase their anxiety and can lead to violent behavior. This may erect a tremendous barrier between the helping person and the client. Like suppose if I'm trying to help you out in a situation and you feel threatened, then you won't take me as a helping person. You'll perceive me as a threat. You'll think that I'm going to harm you. So you'll try and get away from me. So in that case, I cannot help you. Barriers in oral communication can occur when a helping person attempts to adapt or adjust to another person's speech pattern. The awareness, the understanding of ethnic speech pattern is good in establishing effective communication. When someone attempts to communicate using this without adequate knowledge or ability, the problem can arise. These problems can range from a sense of meaning to the problem in connotation of words being used. Like, for example, when I was a young girl, there was an ad of Colgate. Colgate. I don't remember exactly when it was of Colgate. There was this ad, and the guy flies to a foreign country and he reaches there and he's in the middle of the marketplace. He's very thirsty. And now what he says is he finds people and he says water, water. Nobody understands. Then he goes to he finds a girl and she's ready to help. And he says like he you know uh, does an action for drinking water. So she says the pair. So look at then the boy says yes, yes, yes. So she points towards the bar. The boy says super, super. No, no. The boy says again, he rubs his throat and he says, like, he again gestures for having a glass of water. So she says, cafe, and she points towards a coffee shop. The boy says, yes, 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 cafe, la cafe. No, she is a French and he is an Indian. Either he knows English or he knows Hindi, but he doesn't know French. La cafe, la pain, le pain, these are French words. Unless and until you know the language, you won't be able to communicate. Like in French, uh, cake is known as gâteau and gift is known as cadeau. Chocolate is known as chocolat. I'm just telling you these words. Au revoir is goodbye. Bonjour is hello. Now, unless and until you know, how will you be able to understand? If I say asseyez-vous, asseyez-vous. Now you are standing in the class and I say asseyez-vous. What will you do? You simply say, ma'am, can't get you. But if I gesture my hand saying, sit down, and I say, asseyez-vous, and or rather I put my both the hands on your shoulders and I push you down on the bench, on the chair, and I pat your back. This means that you please sit down. Sahiye wo in French means आप बैठ जाइए. Now there is this linguistical barrier. Unless and until you know the language, you won't be able to react. That is why sometimes you even get aggressive because you cannot understand the psyche of an individual when the person is unable to understand. Sometimes there are certain people who don't know English at all. They are not able to understand single word in English. So you have to be very plain with them, very simple with them. Make them understand. Because what's the point in saying if the person sitting in front of you is not understanding? The point of communication is making the person sitting in front of you understand. That is where you have to overcome the linguistic barrier. The final is that of the literacy of the individual in crisis. Like the other day, I gave you an example that if you have a homemaid, like you have a maid at home, you're not going to talk to her in English because she's not educated enough. She might not even know how to write her name, sign her check, open her bank account. She might be using her thumb impression. You cannot talk to her in that way. Literacy is even a problem. In certain conditions, it's high. In certain conditions, it's low. It entirely depends upon the state, even. But it becomes real. The individual really becomes very anxious and frustrated if he is not able to understand because everybody has their limits. The client's body language and use of paraverbals may even provide a warning. Like suppose my body language is not very supportive of what I am saying. Will you be able to trust me? No. So effective communication will come to a complete shutdown if the person in front of you is in stress or crisis. Now you have to understand that sometimes poor attention on the part of the receiver can even become a barrier. Maybe my full attention is not on you. Maybe I'm marking attendance, and you come to me and you ask me, can you explain this barrier again? Yes, yes. And then I suddenly look at you blank and say, Beta, what were you saying? Because my mind was totally engrossed in marking attendance, not listening to what you are saying. So sometimes partial or no attention from the receiver can even result in breakdown of the communication. Now, circumstances like, for example, fatigue. You're very tired. You're very hungry. The environment, the atmosphere, the uncomfortable sitting position. Something, sitting is new smoking. If you sit for a long period of time, it is as harmful as smoking is. Sometimes, it gives you jammed joints. You must, after every hour or 40 minutes, you must get up from your place and you must walk. You must stroll for a minute or two so that proper blood circulation can go. This is the major reason I ask students to stand up after the class, before the class, and even to go for a sip of water. Because you should not be confined, your body should not be at a restricted mode because your reception will fail. If you're tired, if your joint is paining, if you are feeling lagged, like suppose people travel by air for long distance, then they get jet lag. Why? Because sometimes cars, when you are buying it, your height is good. Then you look for leg space. Why? Because you can't sit for a very, very long period of time in a small car. Your legs will be cramped. You will feel a lot of trouble. So hunger, anger, stress, apprehensions, these can even create a problem. Now we'll come to semantic. Semantic barriers are due to meanings. They are created due to meanings. You're not able to understand the meaning of the message. So they arise from that. There is always a possibility of misunderstanding the feeling of the sender of the message, getting the wrong meaning out. The word, sign, the figure used in the communication are explained by the receiver in light of its experience, which creates doubtful situations. This happens because the information is not sent in simple language. As I said earlier, what's the point in explaining when everybody is not able to understand? And you have to be very simple. J.B. Priestley has, in fact, written essay on it, on being simple. Simplicity, he said, simplicity is a virtue. What's the point in creating Illuminati code, which everybody cannot break? What is the success of teaching? I really want to share this with you on when we are talking about barriers to communication. My success in teaching is when each and every one of my students understand what I'm talking about. I should not use any vocabulary which is not present in the student's vocabulary, because you may not match mine, and on the contrary, I may not match yours. You may have a very good vocabulary, but I make sure that if I'm using a word, I must explain the meaning. Why? Because unless and until I give you the meaning, you won't be able to understand. And understanding in communication is most vital. Meaning has to be generated. You should not misunderstand my meaning. You should not be able to feel, you should not feel uncomfortable. The other day I told you, increasing your vocabulary by reading newspapers is a very big responsibility. Why? Because the vocabulary of the editor is 10,000 words. Can you imagine? Out of 14,000 words in dictionary, an editor might know 10,000, 12,000, maybe all 14,000. I have met one or two people who knew 14,000 words by heart, but you cannot know them. So it creates a problem. And the chief problems related to barriers, according to the in semantic senses, badly expressed messages. Because of the obscurity of language, there is a possibility of wrong interpretation. This barrier is created because of the wrong choice of words. In civil words, the wrong sequence of sentence and frequent repetition. It may be called linguistic chaos. Like, for example, sometimes a repetition of something enhances the beauty, but sometimes it impedes it. Impedes it means affects its value. आप बहुत ज़्यादा repeat करेंगे, if you say the same thing again and again, you all meet me at 3 p.m. in the afternoon. You all together meet me at 3 p.m. in the afternoon. If all get it, why you need together? If there is 3 p.m., then why do you need afternoon? 3 p.m. itself is afternoon. It's not right in the morning. And if it's all together, all is there, then why together? Getting my point? So sometimes badly expressed messages, your own choices of words even create a problem. Simple or words with different meanings. Now, like for example, if I take the word value, what is the value? Value, like suppose if I say I have a mobile, what is the value of this mobile set? The value of the mobile, the financial value of the mobile is depreciable. The moment you buy, it depreciates. The value of the car depreciates. But what is the value of that car which has been gifted to you by your mom? I see many students, many people driving the car and it says my mom's gift, papa's gift. That something shows, their emotional side of it. That's the emotional value of the car. But it's a gift. It's a gift given out of love and affection. But if I say that what is the value of the car, then my dear, the financial value of the car is depreciated. So words and symbols can have different meanings. One thing for you can mean a different thing. One thing can mean a different thing. Like if I say value of our friendship, value of our relationship. A teacher and taught share a very valuable relationship, very sweet relationship. The students, they are so loving and affectionate that they keep in touch with the teachers even after a long period of time. Even so many people have left, but when they come back to collect their degrees, they do make it a point that they come and meet us. So that's the value of the repo that we share. Okay? Quality translation. Now, before we go on to translation, you must understand translation is like a beloved. Yes. Translation is like a beloved. If she is beautiful, she is not faithful. And if she is faithful, she is not beautiful. If I say, ladki niche khadi hai, the most faithful translation is misunderstanding. But the beautiful translation is the girl is standing downstairs. But never ever did I say ki ladki सीढ़ियों के नीचे खड़ी है. I never said the girl is standing down the lane. But you need an object to complete the sense. That is where the grammar plays a very important role. The faulty translation even happens because there are certain things that don't exist in our culture. Like मेरी माँ भुनभुनाती हुई कहते हैं रसोई घर से तड़का लगा कर निकली. In certain cultures, kitchen is just a room, but for us, it is where we offer food to Ma Annapurna, where we, still even today, we touch the gas stove or induction. I have seen many people. I've seen my mom touching the gas stove every day before she lit it. She said that I want to give my namaskar to the god of fire. And whenever she cooked food, she said, Manavuna, see to it that it's good for everybody's health and it's tasty enough. It's delicious enough. Because food for you may mean different. Like, for example, I keep telling my students even, you don't like bringing tiffin to the college. But what is tiffin? Is it just the 4 5 puris, the sabzi, the achar, the paratha, the sabzi, the paratha, the achar? No. It is the love and affection of your mother, of the person who's cooking for you, getting up right in the morning and thinking, what will I make for this child? That is the love and affection. You must see the translation of that feeling. And that translation is the tiffin that you are carrying in your bag. The message is, it's entirely a different kind of an understanding. Environment even matters because translation what here is of language, but of feeling somewhere even culture even. Like if there is a tea and if I try to pick it up and you say, ma'am, ye chai jhoothi. Now in Hindi, because in our culture there is a very difference of being jhooth सच्चे को हम लोग बहुत मानते हैं. But when when you want to say in English, you say, "Ma'am, this has been taken," but it's very rude. Why it has been taken? It can be left for me. Even you can go and you can go and fetch a fresh cup of tea for yourself. You must give it to me. I'm your senior. I'm your teacher. You must, out of respect, you must offer it to me. But actually, it's taken. You meant कि झूठी है, but you're gonna translate it. Okay, like unclarified assumptions. It has been observed that sometimes a sender takes it for granted that the receiver knows some basic thing. Therefore, it is enough to tell him about the major subject matter. Like, for example, I cannot assume, I told you in my first session even, that you might not be knowing any such thing because we don't use this kind of vocabulary in every day-to-day life. So, I cannot expect that you know each and every technical jargon. I have to explain each and everything. I cannot take it for granted that you know it. Now, technical jargons have already explained that there are technical terms, that people of technical background like engineers, the doctors, the production development managers, the quality controllers use. They are not what we use in day-to-day life. Body language and gesture decoding. It is very important because if you are moving your neck in reply to a question, it does not indicate whether it's yes or no. If you are moving it from left to right, I'm asking you, have you understood? And you are moving your head like a Meena Bazaar doll. Have you seen a Meena Bazaar doll who they have spring attached to their neck? If you touch their chin, they bobble their head. You're bobbling your head like a Meena Bazaar doll. What will I understand? Whether you've understood or not, whether it's a yes or a no. Getting? So, uh, body language and just decoding even matters. Now, we are about to begin with cultural barriers. This is where I end my session today. And I'll get back to you soon because cultural barriers is something that needs to be discussed in detail, and we'll discuss it differently. Okay, in a different. And stay safe, enjoy, and please come back to the next session. Thank you so much. Good day.